Welcome back to Breakbeat Code. Up next, we're going to have a conversation with Monique Salvador. Monique is an experienced product manager who loves to lead cross-functional teams to build technical products from scratch. Monique has been developing products from ideation stage to launch across multiple industries for the last 8 years. An ex-startup founder of Blushup and Harmonia, which was recently acquired. She won a Retail Innovator Award for disrupting the $90 billion beauty retail market in 2018. And she now serves as a mentor for Techstars, Girls Who Code, Columbia University, and several startups. Monique began her career working in investment banking at Merrill Lynch and UBS. She later worked at 3 venture capital firms, including Techstars, where she started to get involved with technology companies and operated alongside their teams. She studied at Fordham University, London School of Economics, and Columbia Business School. So, please welcome Monique Salvador. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So if you could tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and yeah, just more about you.
All right. So my name is Monique. I came to the United States, to New York, as an immigrant with my family. And I was fortunate enough to receive a U.S. education. And I started off in college in an economics major, which is completely different from what I'm doing now in the tech industry. But the way that I got here now was I started working in banking after college. Then eventually I worked in 2 venture capital firms, and I was always involved with technology companies. So I guess in my early 20s, 23, I started to be around the startup and the technology ecosystem. That's how eventually it led me to starting my own company and then becoming a product manager in the tech industry, as I am now.
Tell me about your company, how you built it, and what was that whole journey like for you?
So the name of the company was Blushup. I founded it in 2017. And at that point, I was working at Techstars Accelerator in Boston. So I was helping 14 very early stage companies, brilliant founders, to build their first product. And I guess that really inspired me to come up with my own ideas. But being an entrepreneur and starting a company was never something that I thought that I could do. It was never a plan in my life. It just happened that one day I said, you know what, if I come up with a really good idea that I think could really take off, I'll do it. Why not? But it's not like I had planned it. So one day in 2017, I came up with an idea where I wanted to get a makeup done for a party I had in New York City at a store like Macy's, right? So I went on Google, I looked for a way to book this appointment at Macy's. And I noticed that they didn't have an online booking appointment. So that day I spent the entire day on Google just trying to find a phone number or reviews or photos of this treatment. And I couldn't. So that really frustrated me. And I ended up walking around New York City, like store to store, Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Chanel, all these big beauty brands. And I was asking them, I was like, how come you guys don't have an online booking system? Nobody has built this yet, And then something just hit me, like a light just shone on my head. I was like, I think I know how to get a company started. I have been working with all these startups, all these great founders, so I know how to get there. Maybe I can do this. And that's how Blushup got founded.
That's an awesome story. I love how entrepreneurs so often are like trying to solve their own problem, right? It's just like they've seen a need that like they personally had an experience with. Now, so you came from a different space, I think, from a lot of other entrepreneurs in the sense that like you're already in the ecosystem, so you kind of like knew how it worked, you knew how the game was played, you know how funding work. It's more like, can you personally do this? But like, did you ever have like this experience, like what people talk about, like imposter syndrome, where like where you don't feel like you are like you are in the space you're supposed to be in, or like, is this really for you? Or tell me about that experience.
I feel that all the time. And I noticed that as my company grew, as we got bigger and bigger, it gets worse. Like that imposter syndrome just gets worse. So in the beginning, for example, right, you create this idea, it's just an idea. You start posting jobs to recruit for engineers, designers, marketers. So I posted in like top schools. I went all out. I was like, I'm going to Columbia, I'm going to NYU. I want to hire the best people, the best students, you know. So I posted some jobs there, and so many people were applying to work as a designer for me. And then you look at that and you're like, why are these people applying to work for me, like this company, this idea, you know? And that's when the imposter syndrome gets started for founders. And from then on, it just gets worse. Like every time someone calls you for an interview, you know, for like when you close a booking on our website, little things like that. Every time someone would book an appointment, I would be like, oh my God, like these people are using my technology. Like, do I deserve this? You know, you don't get it. Like, you just don't get it, you know?
Yeah. But you had to overcome it, right? To like just to function in your job. Like how did you, like what got you through those moments like when you were feeling that feeling?
Yeah, I think it's really a psychological exercise that we have to practice because it can get in the way of, of your productivity, right? It
Yeah.
can mean that some people, some founders, they can have really low self-esteem and they can say, "Oh no, like I don't deserve, like people don't deserve to work for me, you know?
Mm.
My idea is not good enough." And I really truly believe that this feeling can get a lot of entrepreneurs to quit because it's
Mm.
kind of like you're not believing in yourself enough, you know,
Right.
or you don't feel confident enough to build or to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And eventually that leads to failing.
Right. Right. So So like a lot of entrepreneurs I talk to, like along the way, they end up having to do like 10 things at first, and eventually like they hire someone who's like a professional just doing that one thing. Like you end up like you start off, you do marketing, you do sales, you do product development, you do all these different things. Um, and like you had to be bad at those things initially. Like you just have to be because like you're learning it. Like so like could you talk to me like because you had the product management background, I guess, before, or is that because you came in with certain skills, but some
Mhm.
skills you had to pick up from scratch? Like, how did you? Can you describe like how you had to start with like being bad at something and kind of like figure out to be good enough at it so you could actually like get the job done?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was particularly not very good with like I would say software development, right? Which is the engineering side of building a company. I'm not a tech person. I don't have a computer science background and I don't code, right? So here you are as the leader of your company, as the head product manager, and you're leading an engineering team that's getting bigger and bigger. And you're also hiring the most talented engineers, right? So you're working with top people and you need to learn how to manage them. So how
Mhm.
do you do that? You've never gotten training for it. If you don't even have the, you know, the school background for it.
Mhm.
And it really came down to, as with everything in life, you know, it's really about experience, right? Like you really learn on the job. Like you learn how to be a startup founder, you learn how to be a startup CEO, a product manager, because these are all roles where you're really leading a team to build something. And I believe that it's not something that can be easily taught, you know? It can only be done through experience. So you fail many times, right? But for startup founders, it's really important, which is what I did, is to get very strong mentorship, very strong advisors on your board, because
Mhm.
those were the people that really held me up and really taught me how to build technology. You know, so I made sure that I hired those best mentors, best advisors on the team to really help me out and teach me. And it's
Right.
also a part of being humble as a founder to say, okay, you know, I'm actually bad at this. Like I am bad at coding, so I need to hire the best coding mentor to guide me throughout this process.
Right. That's and then how did you find those mentors? Like what was your way to like how do you ask for mentorship, for example?
Yeah. So I don't know if I got lucky or not, you know, because I had the most amazing team. They were all talented and great-hearted people. And
Mhm.
mind you, I had no money, right? Like I self-funded the startup. I
Mm.
bootstrapped. I bootstrapped like crazy. I hired a bunch of interns in the beginning. Everyone was working for me for free. So I remember my first tech advisor. He was incredible. I posted on Columbia University that I was doing this idea and I needed help. And he called me up and he said, you know what? I work at Apple. I'm not going to leave my job, so you can't convince me. But I want to help you. I want to work with you. I think your idea is great.
Mhm.
I like what you're building and I want to help you out. Like, I want to help you to recruit the engineers and run the engineering team. So we clicked right away. I knew that
Mhm.
this was a passionate person. He was working for me for free, really believed in the idea. And eventually you meet a bunch of these people along the way that end up helping you out and making you, the founder that you are.
That's great. So it eventually raised money, or did you go like bootstrapping? You went straight to profitability. Like along the way, like did you get like angel investing? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it took me a while, and
Yeah.
I thought that being in the finance background would help me out. I was like, oh, when I started, you're like, oh, in 3 months I'll raise money. I already know all these investors. That's never how it works. Startup founders, we run out of money. Okay, the costs are so high. Engineering to pay for the engineers, it's so high, and you're really not prepared for all of that. So it took me about a year and a half to get my first investor check, which was like $15,000. Yeah, very little.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it was 15K. I probably did a lot with the money at that point, just paying for engineers and designers and things like that, which is like the main cost for us. But then, after that, after you get your first check from an angel investor, the fundraising process becomes a bit easier once you get the first investor on board, because then they see, oh, okay, someone believed in her, someone's willing to give their money to her. So it kind of gives you a bit more strength to raise money.
So talk to me a little bit about rejection. Like how did like along the way you must have faced a rejection at different points, maybe when you're asking for funding or whatever it was. Like what was that like for you and how'd you get through it?
Yeah. So I had to deal with a lot of rejection, right? And at some point, after you're rejected like 100 times from investors, it starts to mess with you. Like, you're like, am I really good enough? Maybe this is
Mm.
not a good idea. But I remember specifically, I spoke to one investor. He really put me down. He's like, no, this is not a great idea and this is not going to go anywhere. So you come across those people that really don't believe in what you're doing,
Mhm.
and you will have a hard day. On that day, it will be a hard day, no matter what someone tells you. No matter how much mental strength you have, you will go home and you're going to feel a little bit bad. So what I learned to do on those tough days as a founder, right? I would just go home. I would allow myself to have like a down day, but then it was like, okay, tomorrow is a new day. I need to get back up. I need to do what I'm doing. I have an amazing team supporting me. I have so many people that already gave me money. I'm in this amazing accelerator program and I need to keep on going. I believe in myself and I believe in the idea and I will keep on going. So that's how you face these rejections.
It's really interesting the way you said it. You had a down day. Is that just where you kind of let yourself kind of feel bad about it? Like what is that? What's a down day?
You have to. Like,
Mm.
let's say a down day for me, it feels like in the afternoon, right? Because you can't stop as a founder. But if it was in the afternoon, I would just go home, like let myself rest, let myself sleep early. It was not the day to make any decisions.
Mhm.
It was not the day to answer important emails, right? If you could avoid that day to be around like your team at the office, you probably should do that, just because you don't want to, as a leader, I think you never want to show up to the office with negative energy.
Mm.
I always had that in me. Like, I want to come to the office every day positive. I need to motivate my team. I need to motivate my investors. I don't want to show up like, oh yeah, this didn't work out and this investor said that. So I did a really good job throughout all the years, even when I was really down, even when the day was bad, to
Mhm.
always have that positive mentality.
Mm. No, I love that. I love that. The
Yeah.
yeah, so the this event that we're doing, it's all about hip hop and hip hop's all about remixing. I think what you described, like you're bringing different ideas together. Like so tell me a little bit more about that. Like cuz actually I think by its nature like Blushup was a bit of a remix. Like you're like we have this like old process, old way of doing things. There's clearly this need. But I'm guessing you probably brought different ideas into that. Like, it just wasn't just a booking system, right? So tell me a little bit how you kind of remixed and combined ideas in that way.
Yeah, so you come up with the main problem, right? Which is okay, we don't have an online booking system. We need to build an online booking system. But
Mhm.
then it's not only about technology. It's
Yeah.
also about people and understanding people and how they feel. So what was happening in my industry, in my case, they didn't only need a booking platform because so many booking platforms already existed, right? So I
Mhm.
knew that I had to add the marketing piece to it. I had to make sure that my marketing team was driving the customers to use this platform as well. And the
Mhm.
only way that we could do that was by studying the customers. What do they need? What are the pain points, right?
Mhm.
What do people want to see on the platform that's going to keep them coming back and
Mhm.
not just say that we are, a booking technology, right? So
Mhm.
that's what I ended from starting off from like a simple booking technology. We ended up becoming the leader in the industry, I would say, to drive foot traffic to the stores
Hmm.
through through our website. And eventually, when COVID hit, we had to change the product around, which is the part of the company that got acquired. So I built something new. I included a bit more of AI into the product, and I ended up building an AI system that would recommend like top aesthetic doctors nearby for people.
Hmm.
So come up with a bunch of ideas from one little piece of idea that you start, right? And that's all about understanding people and what people need.
I love that. I love that. When you were doing your research, did you, I mean, you obviously had the aha moment when you first came up with the idea. Did you have any like things along the way where like you had like kind of these surprising conclusions? Like you had a conversation with someone and all of a sudden it's like, well, actually, we got to think about this a little bit differently.
Yeah, so many of those.
Yeah.
So, one thing that happens when you start a company, right? Um, you get really excited. Like I meet founders now in their first like 6 months, and they're so excited. It's like we're gonna do this. We're gonna build everything. We're gonna make the website perfect before launch, and it's all kind of
Mhm.
an illusion, right? Because when you start building, something always goes wrong.
Mhm.
And then when I started, I had this big dream, big idea, right? I was like, I'm gonna build a booking platform all across the United States.
Yeah.
And then once I got the tech advisor on board, he's like, wait a minute, all across the United States, we need to first start off with like a little section in New York City.
Right.
And you're like, no, but my idea is big. I have a big dream. It's the US, it's global, right?
Right.
But
Right.
that's not how it works. You need to start small and
Mhm.
then you can grow once that small piece starts working out well.
Right. That makes sense because you actually literally had to go and sell to that specific store, for example. Like,
Yeah,
as you
and that's all a lot of work.
yeah,
Selling to one store, one customer is a lot of work. Like
yeah,
building a technology for, Manhattan, right? That
yeah.
in itself is a lot of work.
So, was there like a you talked about imposter syndrome and, like, how it just got, like you described it as being like, well, it actually gets worse as it gets bigger, like, because, like, it's kind of you have these bigger challenges. But I guess at some point you had to, like there must have been a point where you paused, like, "Actually, no, I'm a startup founder." Like, "Wait, no, I just exited. I just, like, sold my company." Did you have, like, these kind of moments where you're just like, "Oh, no, I actually did this?" Like, what like, tell me about that feeling, that moment where, like, all those things that, like, maybe there was, like, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, those sorts of things where you actually just kind of accepted, like, "No, actually, I'm doing the thing. Like, I'm this person. I'm a startup founder. I'm a successful one with that."
Yeah, I think that's all about the people that are surrounding you. And
Yeah,
I really think that if you make it past your fifth year as a startup founder, it's because you had great people to support you along the way.
yeah,
And those people would remind me constantly. They're like, wow, like you are a startup founder, like you founded a company. This is big. This is not 99% of your peers haven't done that. And even like I asked one of my advisors one day, I said, why did you help me for free? You didn't need to, like, you make millions of dollars, like, you have your job. And he's like, well, because I could never do what you've done. And I think that hit me. It was like, wow, like this guy, he's a genius and he makes so much money and he said he could never do what I did. But it's not because it's glam. There's nothing glam, right, about being a leader. Like it's a challenging role. And I think as a leader, you know that and you have that in your mind and you're like, no, this is not glam. But now I get it why, because it's so difficult. It's such a difficult thing to do. And you start realizing that as a founder, right? You're like, okay, people admire me because it's so difficult. It's such a difficult thing to do. And I need to accept that I've done it.
My last question is this. 14-year-old Monique, what would you tell 14-year-old Monique?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say don't feel like you need to know exactly what you want at that
Mhm.
age. You need to explore different hobbies, different things, because eventually that's going to lead you to your passion. Like I told you, I started off with economics. I had an
Mhm.
economics degree. I never thought I would end up in tech. And I love to death what I do. I love building tech products.
Mhm.
So I always had that in me where I would explore everything. I would try everything out. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. It's okay not to know exactly what you want to do at that age,
Mhm.
but just keep exploring. Don't be afraid to explore.
It's been so much fun to talk to you. This has been so inspiring just for me personally. I know that the people that are going to be watching are going to be super inspired as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
And like the type of things that you're saying, like if I just know that there's going to be, all sorts of people that are going to like listen to your story and like and realize that
I'm
they can
so,
do this too.
so grateful. Thank you so much. This is really awesome for me.
Yeah,
I
I
really
appreciate it.
enjoy it.